Pastor Reeve, members of congregations, fellow guests, my name is Ricarda Redecker. I'm the Consul General of the Federal Republic of Germany here in Houston. Thank you for inviting me for today's commemoration. I stand here as a representative of Germany in Houston, but also as a member of a generation of Germans born after the Second World War. We, the Germans of today, shall not forget the crime of the Holocaust. It was committed by Germans who belonged to the generations of our fathers and grandfathers, our uncles and granduncles. We, therefore, hold a special responsibility to remember the Shoah, to draw the right lessons from this deepest point of our history, and we bear the responsibility to keep remembrance alive in the future. Even more than 60 years after the end of the war, the Holocaust is not a distant crime. It will never be. This burden is there to stay. Crimes that were committed in the German name will continue to influence the identity of our nation. The almost impossible, the irritating, the most painful part of German identity. My generation knows that as individuals we are not held responsibility for what our fathers and grandfathers did. And yet we are not just individuals. We are members of families. We are members of a nation, a culture, a language. This is where the collective responsibility of us as Germans lies. We will and never should be able to deconstruct it. And this is also where the responsibility of the so-called generation in the mercy of late birth, meaning born after World War II, begins. It is our obligation to remember what happened and to undertake every effort to prevent a similar horror, wherever it might happen. When we see pictures of the Holocaust, when we read and learn about it, these pictures and stories hurt. As humans, and particularly as Germans, we feel the pain they cause us. We have to listen with our hearts too. It is through this experience of a later generation that the important message of the Shoah is not being lost. A message which the great Italian writer and Holocaust survivor Primo Levi put into the following words: "We cannot understand it, but we can and must understand whence it was born, and be alert. If understanding is impossible, knowing is necessary, because what happened can return. Human conscience can be seduced and darkened again, even our conscience." I cannot think of a better way to express the responsibility we feel. After the war, we Germans succeeded in building a strong democracy. And yes, we also managed to establish close ties with the State of Israel. Our two countries this year celebrate the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties. And yes, we have established a relation of friendship between our peoples. It is our task to hand over this friendship from generation to generation, like we must hand over the memory of the Holocaust from generation to generation too. Never again. Thank you very much.
Visit www.marchofremembrancehouston.org, www.marchofremembrance.org for information on an event in your area. Hear Holocaust survivors, World War II veterans, and/or their families share their experiences as victims and liberators. Experience heartfelt testimonies, healing, and hope. Rise up and march against today's anti-Semitism. Marchofremembrance.org. Marchofremembrancehouston.org.